Themistocles saved Athens, then vanished into the shadow of its anger. And the strangest part is how his story ends, alone in a foreign empire, with his death claimed as both surrender and defiance. He was the man who heard the sea before anyone else did, who looked at the dry dust of Attica and imagined ships, oars, bronze rams cutting through salt water, a city that could move even when its walls fell. In the years before the Persian storm, Athens still argued like a crowded marketplace, loud, proud, and hungry for proof, and Themistocles learned to speak to that hunger, to feed it, to steer it without letting anyone feel the hand on the rudder. When the warning signs came, the fires in distant cities, the messengers with shaking mouths, he pushed and pushed until the silver of the mines became timber, and the timber became hulls, and the hulls became a fleet that could breathe as one. Then the Persians arrived like a horizon that had decided to step closer, and Athens entered itself, mothers, elders, children, a whole city poured into ships and shoreline camps, watching smoke rise where their homes had been. In that chaos, the sea became the only ground that mattered, and at Salamis the water tightened into a narrow throat, and Themistocles drew the enemy into it, promising certainty while building a trap made of fear and tide. The victory was real, unmistakable, loud with splintering wood and drowning armor, and for a moment Athens believed it had found its permanent hero, the kind a city can lean on without shame. But a city that survives does not stay grateful for long. It grows suspicious, it counts the cost, it remembers every harsh order, every manipulation, every secret message sent to keep allies from fleeing. Whispers formed first, then sharpened, that Themistocles had grown too clever, too proud, too practiced in bending truth, that he loved Athens, yes, but he loved the sound of Athens saying his name even more. In the bright aftermath, rival leaders rose like new stones in a rebuilt wall, and each stone wanted space, and Themistocles found that the very skills that saved the city now made him dangerous to it. Accusations gathered around him like dust around wet feet, charges of arrogance, of corruption, of playing both sides of power, and behind every charge was the deeper fear that he might someday choose himself over Athens. Then came the hammer Athens kept for men it no longer trusted, ostracism, exile by vote, a clean public banishment that turned yesterday's savior into today's unwanted memory. He left the city he had defended, walking out under the same sky he had once promised to protect, and the road out of Athens is not long, but for a fallen hero it can feel endless. At first, exile was only distance, a bitter chance to breathe, to wait, to plan a return, but the world was still full of Persian eyes, and Greek cities were full of Greek grudges. More charges followed, heavier now, tying him to the traitor's name, linking him to plots and messages, and Themistocles realized he was no longer merely unpopular, he was hunted. So he did what almost no Greek hero in the stories ever chooses to do. He ran toward the enemy's empire, toward the king whose armies he had defeated, as if the only safe shadow left was the shadow of Persia itself. The journey east was a tightening net of risk. Coastlines watched, ports whispered about, and a man once surrounded by admirers now moving like a thief, depending on strangers and luck. When he reached Persian ground, the story turned strange, because the Persians did not simply kill him, they received him, and somewhere in those halls of power, a former enemy was granted a place. Some accounts say he arrived with audacity, demanding an audience. Others say he approached like a desperate refugee, but all agree on the core twist. Themistocles offered his mind to the very empire he once outwitted. He asked for time, a year, to learn the language, to shape his words, to speak without an interpreter's mask, and the king, either amused or impressed, granted it, as if postponing the end of a man's story on purpose. In that year, Themistocles lived between worlds, Greek in his bones, Persian by necessity, eating at tables where every smile could be a knife, hearing music that could not drown out the memory of triremes crashing at Salamis. They say he was given a city to support him, a place to live and rule, a kind of gilded exile, and he built a small court around himself, a shadow Athens that could not vote him away. But then the unanswered question begins to throb, because what exactly did Persia want from him? And what did he truly promise in return? And did he mean it, or was he still building traps out of words? Some claim he pledged to lead Persian forces against Greece, to bring the empire's weight down on the very shores he once saved. And if that is true, then where is the proof? Where are the orders? Where are the campaigns marked by his hand? Others insist he never intended to strike his homeland, that he used promises to survive, that he planned to stall, to misdirect, to die before the bargain could be collected. And that is where the story split like a forked road at night. Because at some point, a command supposedly arrived from the Persian king, a demand that Themistocles make good on his pledge and march, and the moment that demand becomes real, his death follows close behind. One version says he could not bear it, that the weight of betrayal pressed down, that the man who saved Athens could not become the man who broke it, and so he chose death as the only remaining form of control. Another version says there was no dramatic choice at all, that illness took him, quiet and ordinary, a fever, a failing body, the slow closing of a life that had burned too hard too long. Yet another whisper slides in, darker, that in the Persian court nothing ends without someone's permission, that a Greek too clever was useful until he wasn't, and that a cup, a meal, a physician's hand could turn history without leaving fingerprints. And then there is the detail that keeps returning like a stubborn ghost, the claim that he drank bull's blood, a thing said to kill quickly, a theatrical poison that sounds like myth and yet clings to his name as if someone wanted the world to remember a dramatic end. If he killed himself, where did he find this bull's blood? Who prepared it? Who watched him drink? And why does the story feel shaped for ears that love symbols more than facts? If he died naturally, why did so many insist on a death of conscience? Why did people need him to choose a noble end rather than admit that heroes can fade like anyone else, coughing in a bed far from home? Even his burial refuses to settle, because some accounts place his tomb in Persian land, honored, maintained, a strange monument where an enemy became a prized possession. Other accounts insist his bones were smuggled back across the sea, returned secretly to Attica, hidden from the law that had cast him out, as if Athens could not forgive him in public but could not bear to leave him abroad. If that secret return happened, who carried the bones, who risked punishment to do it, and how did they slip past the eyes of a city that watched its own people so closely? The story leaves behind scattered shapes, a hero turned exile, an exile turned advisor, an advisor who may have been ordered to betray, and a death that can be read as honor, weakness, murder, or performance. And somewhere between the sea that made him great and the empire that swallowed him, the question still hangs. When Themistocles closed his eyes for the last time, did he do it as Athens' savior, Persia's weapon, or a man still lying to both?